Everybody, let's welcome Vee Mus'e to Dragon Talk. Yay!
Finally.
I know. Oh my gosh, this is so great. I'm so excited for this.
Oh, I mean, we
Absolutely.
have been waiting such a long time to get to talk to you. So very excited.
now's
That
the
day
time.
has finally come.
Right? Oh gosh.
No pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure.
No, not at all.
So folks will know you from, being very online and creating amazing stuff, painting minis for years and years and years, as well as being a TRPG performer. But you're also kind of moonlighting as this amazing representative about WizKids and the amazing minis that they've been coming out with.
Yeah, that too. It's just, a little bit of, few irons in the fire type of thing happening, but it's all a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it for sure.
Cool little side hustle you've got going on.
I mean, I obviously I can't complain,
No.
I get to look and reveal cool things for people. So yeah, why not?
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your role at WizKids. Like, what is it exactly that you're doing there?
Well, it's actually a lot of hats. So basically it is getting word out about products. So like a lot of the social media will be the stuff that I'm generating and getting out there on social media, doing the streaming, which is, mini mayhem that happens every Wednesday, and helping make sure other things get going for streams as well. It is contacting other influencers and media sources and letting them know about projects and getting collaborations together. It's other stuff like, checking copy, writing copy. Like you jump in and you do a lot. It's a lot, but it's, it's constantly changing and shifting, and you put one thing down and something else comes up and you jump into that, and then you put that one down. And it keeps you on your toes. It keeps you busy. It keeps you definitely looking into a bunch of different things at the same time. So, I mean, it's cool though, because you find out all this stuff going on, and, it's just, I get to share my love of minis with people and get paid for it. So can't exactly complain about that part.
Yeah.
When you were like as a hobby, a mini painting hobbyist, did you ever think like that I could get paid one day to do this, or to work in this industry, or that this is a job? I mean, this was like a hobby.
I mean, well, first of all, the whole thing started off as a simple little lark. It's like, I have always been a person who's been crafty. Even as a child, it was painting this porcelain figurine. It was building this little dollhouse feature and everything like that. And then when I found out that, oh wait, tabletop terrain is a thing, then it was like, oh, I can do this. I've been doing this stuff and just having fun with it. And then people wanting to find out how I went about making things. That's how the whole YouTube channel itself got started. Because someone said to me, who used to be a teacher, can you show me how to do it? Which of course is going to be like, oh yeah, I can definitely do a lesson plan. Let's do that. And so, none of this was ever intentionally planned or like my target. So the fact that I'm here, I'm kind of like, wait, this, oh yeah, this, okay, hi. So I'm thrilled with it, quite frankly. It's amazing.
I think that's a common occurrence within the TRPG space, where you're like, man, I'm just doing this because I'm passionate about it and I really, really love it. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, those skills and passion transfer over to, an actual position. Like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just you and me. I don't know. But it's happened to us for sure. And I just have to say, one of my favorite parts of D&D Live last year was you being able to reveal so many of the amazing dragon minis. Our Chonky Boy made of Chardolin was my favorite.
They're literally both staring at me right now.
I know.
Are you just sitting there surrounded by cool minis?
Yes. I think there's about 20 dragons in my room now, like just sort of positioned in various areas. So
just in case you need them, you never know when they're gonna attack.
Guarded by dragons. I like that.
Yeah. I have, I am it was joking, I'm the mother of dragons, but it turns out I might be becoming the dealer of dragons apparently. So
what do you
either works.
Purveyor of dragons. That has a nice ring
I like
to it.
that. I like
Purveyor is a good word.
Instead. Yeah. We were joking around about a trench coat and hiding dragons. I said only if it's a trench coat of holding.
Well, you would need a pretty big trench coat to hide the one that you revealed recently.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because she's not small at all. No, but that was a fun one. That was, in case someone missed it, that's Tiamat that we're talking about. And it is the gargantuan Tiamat that is going to be coming out in September. So she has been something that I've been working on, and we've been sitting on, the WizKids has been sitting on for a little bit to get ready and everything. And thankfully, IGN was absolutely fantastic to work with and got the announcement out for us and shared the news. But she's going to be a good-sized critter for sure on the table. I mean, her dimensions are ridiculous. And jokingly, we call this V scale. So if in terms of like her wingspan, I don't even know what's going to fit in the frame. Hold on, back up a little bit. So like her wingspan is literally, I'm not kidding, from here on me to the tip of my finger. I'm not kidding.
Okay, so the like, people who are listening, you're pointing to like your throat, basically.
Yeah, basically center of my throat to the end of my arm. She is my inseam in wingspan, which is about 30 inches. So it's like 29 inches is her wingspan.
She is a monstrous. I mean, when there's been minis of her in the past, which have been, much, much smaller, the larger or huge
the
scale,
Tyranny of Dragons one. And she's, you put the two together and it's like, Big Mama and, Mama's little baby. When you put the two together now. Exactly. But yeah, no, it's, I mean, she's even bigger than Arviatrus because I was doing the measurements up against Arviatrus and it was just like, oh, okay. She's going to be impressive.
Oh my gosh.
For sure.
And it's going to be a centerpiece of so many tables, I think.
I know.
Even if they're not using her in the game, they're just going to be like, all right, here's D&D's about to begin.
It's like, that's conversation piece. Like she really, like you're going to clear out a shelf. You're going to, or just buy a whole new bookshelf for her.
Yeah.
Because a pedestal, perhaps.
She did, yes. She is worthy.
A pedestal with like lighting, like cool effects, underlighting type of thing. Maybe it changes colors.
Depending on her mood.
Oh,
it's like right? Like you can get like an app for it.
Yeah. Maybe like something with like smoke
Tiamat
effects
is hungry.
Man.
Like those Tamagotchi things you can, your Tiamat is thirsty.
Tiamachagachi?
Tiamachagachi?
Your Tiamat needs attention.
You have to play with her.
Hurry.
Give her humanoids to eat in order to make her happy.
Schedule those rituals and everything. Once a month meeting. Yeah. Keep her happy.
Yep. Well, dungeon masters, I'm sure, are rejoicing all over the world when they saw that. I just want to be there when a dungeon master puts that on the table to their unsuspecting party.
Trust me, I can't wait until it's one of those things where I can like bring her out. I don't know how I'm going to physically do it. Like I might be like a assistant for that particular stream.
I'll be your assistant.
Hey,
I love
Tiamat. Put her on the
Tiamat.
table. Oh, I do too. I am so excited for it.
Yes,
It's
I'm
just
loyal
like,
to her.
Happy thoughts.
So have you always used miniatures when you've played D&D? Has that been like a part of your fandom, or is it something that grew over time?
When I was brought into playing, it started off as like, a couple things here and there, especially like, the grid on the table and like little things that represented. But then it started growing and incorporating more things, and then discovering there was actually tabletop terrain that could be made to really enhance things. That's where it started sort of taking on more of the collecting and building and creating factor. So it wasn't always like right from the word go, oh, yay, look at minis on the table. It was, oh, but that's another part of it that I really am interested in. So the two just sort of meshed and merged together into creating it. So yeah, now it's, safe to say when people come over, there's a tablescape and there's miniatures that you can pick from. And, I've had friends in the industry who've come down to the basement and they've seen the collection, and I lost them for like 20 minutes just looking through the miniatures and everything like that. So yeah, it's fun to be able to visually represent what's going on up in your head after a while.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole other art to be able to figure out how to display them and paint them, right? So, so much of what WizKids does is that amazing hand-painted look, but, a huge part of the fandom is meticulously doing that yourself to find out what's in your brain, right? So,
yeah.
what's what's some tips for people getting into that side of it? Because I think it's, still in the Venn diagram of fandoms, it's still not like the hugest part of D&D. There's other properties that do that a lot more. So yeah, how do you get people into that fun side of listening to a podcast, perhaps, and painting minis?
Well, when it comes to painting minis, I actually always recommend that you start off a little bit bigger, like start with a monster that you really like or a creature that you really like, because it's already something that you're interested in. But because they're not like the little medium-size PC style miniatures, they're easier to paint. And then it's one of those things where you can tap into looking at various channels, either on Twitch or YouTube or what have you, and find someone or people whose techniques you're sort of gravitating towards, or you find appealing to even just watch and listen to. Because chances are, if you're enjoying what you're watching, you'll enjoy the process of what they're doing when you go to try your hand at it. With my own mini painting streams and everything like that, I always encourage people, it's like, look, you can listen to what I have to say. You can take the tips that I have to share with you and put them to use, but don't just lock on to me. I always recommend check out various artists, because you're almost doing yourself a disservice by staying with just one person when there's so much more out there, technique-wise, style-wise, approach-wise, that might click with you as your own artist, as your own person getting into things. So that's something where I always, right off the bat, say, like, definitely look at people, watch what they're doing, see how they're doing things, start with a larger miniature to make it easier on you with painting. And even WizKids is getting into that now with their paint night kits.
Right.
So it's basically the monster with the paints and everything you need. And then there are tutorials attached to it as well. So those have been great too. And it's been fun seeing people turn those in, because I actually did the one for the ogre zombie. So I've been getting people who reach out to me. It's like, oh, I did the tutorial and look, this is what I did. This is the first one I ever painted. And it's so fun. God, I love getting this is my first mini. How did I do? And just like the glee and the excitement. And it's just like being able to show them, you did a great job. So I love getting stuff like that. Like, that's just fantastic. And honestly, it's just taking the plunge. Just don't worry about perfection from the word go, because no one is ever perfect with their first miniature, ever. I mean, I still have my little first miniature, which was a like a little Hero Quest gargoyle figure, and like he's janky, but he's painted.
But you still have them too.
I still have them. Yep, painted with like craft paints and everything like that. There is absolutely no highlighting. The eyes I didn't even bother with, but I can look back at this little guy and be like, oh wow, I've come a long way.
Yeah.
But he's what got me started. So it's one of those things where, just give it a go, see what happens. But yeah, we're definitely
a good life lesson and a good dungeon mastering lesson, right, Shelley?
Yes. I mean, I think that terrains and like that kind of stuff is very exciting to me, because I love miniature things. I love like a doll. Like, I love little bits of furniture and little tiny tea sets and like just little things. So I like when people have really cool terrain and tablescapes. That's very exciting to me, and I think it also does a lot of work for the dungeon master too. But I'm curious, like, if as I'm not someone who does really any dungeon mastering, but is your dungeon mastering or is your storytelling inspired by the pieces that you create, or is it the other way around, that you have a story in your mind and then you build around that?
I think it'd probably be more the other way around, less the terrain pushes the story, because personally as a DM, I always have the world built in my head first, to the point where it's like I could tell you what the NPC's favorite food is. I live in my world for the longest time before I actually will run the game. Wow. So it's important to me to get that land, that place established first. And then I'll go into actually building the sets and what I need for it. When I did D&D in a castle a couple years ago, I hate to say that, but whenever the last one was, I had created, it's basically one shot called Beebe's Place. And it's essentially a 1920s speakeasy where you're sort of jumping between planes and you go to Beebe's Place. And so I created the world in my head first before I even started creating the terrain. But once I got it pulled together, that's where I started painting up the bar area, getting the layout pulled together, like all the little chairs got painted up. And, the second floor had the beds and everything that I made. And then taking old Hero Clicks miniatures to create the NPCs that I would need because, it's the 1920s setting. So I needed people who are like in suits and in, like little, not French maids, but maid outfits type of stuff. So it's once BB's place got established up in my mind, that's where I could physically create it with my hands and have this whole setting and layout ready to go so that people could interact and move things around and see it similar to what was in my head. Obviously not an exact replication, but it was there and it was on the table and people had fun with it. So that's really how it works more for me. I build the world in my head first before I let my hands do the building.
That is super cool. I'd love to talk more about that. You said that you live in your world for a long time before you play out the story. What's the process like? How do you get inspired?
It always starts with one character for me. BB, she was this prominent figure. I was like, okay, here is this woman who knows what she wants. She's literally her own boss. She will kick down doors and do what she can for her friends. And so she started to grow. I was like, okay, well, if she's sort of like this, has her own place, what would that place be like? And then slowly it started taking shape in terms of, could be really cool. She had a place that was sort of like a safe haven for people who were of the magically inclined. And, that's kind of like a speakeasy. So it literally started with BB. And then from BB, things feathered out. And it was even like, well, okay, so she has a speakeasy. That means she's going to need a bouncer. And that's where Sebastian came about. And Sebastian's this half orc, stands at the front door and he's very, very succinct and he has to talk to you and everything like that. And, it grew from there. It's sort of, it's like this little pinpoint of light that starts in my mind with just that one character. And then it feeds out to other aspects and it grows from there. So it really does become like it's almost like I could jump back in and be like, oh yeah, so you had Sebastian and Evie, they went out last night and this was happening over here. So when people are like, hey, let's do a game, it becomes a very easy pickup game for me because it's still constantly evolving and I'll still mull over things that could potentially happen as another round for the game and everything like that. So it's definitely, that's my process. And the same thing happened with Tales of the Old Margrave when I did The Last Heir for Kobold Press. They gave me the module to work with, but I was also given the make of it what you want. And I actually carved out this little section in the Margrave, the Grove of Eternal Autumn. And that became its own culture. It became its own background and lore. And again, more characters. And it's just, I love visiting these places when the time comes to run a game for people.
Do you do that type of thing where you like, whenever you have downtime or you're waiting for something in your life that you're just like, well, now is a good time where I can go visit BB and start to think about, stories and things that, you can spring on your players?
I really do. It's one of those things that's like, friends are like, oh, we should play a game sometime. And that's sort of like, I was like, well, it could be another fun scenario to do for a game. Oh, that could be really cool. And then just kind of get lost in the brainstorming of the next encounter and like, oh, what if we got a new character in there to kind of like throw a curveball at people who might have already been there to play as it is. And it's just fun seeing my friends interact and react to what's there when the time comes to run the game for them again, especially when they've been there before and they've been familiarized with everything or what they thought was everything, but they knew about it. So yeah, it's constantly evolving and growing and changing and new things are brewing. It's just a matter of when I can get it out there for everyone to enjoy.
And that's been tough with this pandemic happening, right? So online is a much different animal in playing. Obviously many folks have jumped into it, myself included, but I've always tried to preserve that wonder of looking at minis on the table that you were talking about earlier. And you can kind of still see it here behind me. I still have the setup and then I set up cameras and everything so that it feels like that. But yeah, I was wondering if you had any, thoughts about how to, still have those miniature realistic scenery moments while not being physically in the same place.
It's funny because when I DM online, I'm theater of the mind.
Interesting.
Yep. I'm very much the dichotomy of if you come and physically are in front of me, I absolutely will use terrain. But when it's set up through like, Zoom call or what have you, I go into theater of the mind because I love describing things and explaining how everything works out. But that being said, oftentimes I'll get maps set up so that I can show them the maps, but it's not just, here is the floor plan. It is, here's the rug with the settee, with the this and the that layered on top of each other. I kind of go into, because my mom was an interior designer. So for me, I revert into like her plans. Like she would leave them scattered on the dining room table all the time, and I would see them as a child. So for me, my maps go towards what interior designers do.
Oh my gosh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So I take it down to like, there's a map that has a table with a doily and a candle. I'm not even kidding.
Wow.
What does that doily mean?
Well, I mean, you could pull it and you could use it to blindfold someone,
Or maybe it was the grandmother of one of the characters. Like
a doily on
details.
a table says a lot about the person who lives there. Like that seems like it's a very simple thing, but I feel like
there's a lot behind
you've
it.
given me a lot of information about the person who lives there.
Yeah, so it's like I'll use those maps instead of my terrain setup so that people can still interact with the terrain, even though it's all like 2D flat upon itself. So that's kind of been my compromise. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're a DM that preps a lot. Is that true?
I prep a lot ahead of time and then I go complete improv.
That's the way to do it.
I will have a basic, these are the high points I want to hit by the time the campaign's done. But I very much will feed off what my players are giving to me and weave the story together because I love seeing what they have to contribute and what they want to add into the story and work with that. So yeah, I will do a lot of prep before everything. And like the first few sessions, I'll still do a lot of prep, but usually by the fourth, and I get a better feel for how everyone's playing and what they're doing with their own characters. That's where I'll sit back and be like, okay, well, I know I want to hit this, this, and this. Let's see how we can get there. So for me, it's very much okay, well, they didn't go in that direction like I thought they would, but I can still sort of shift gears and move and do. So it's a lot of thinking on feet type of situation, but I love being able to do that because for me, it makes it exciting, it makes it fun, and it makes them feel more involved and very much a part of the story.
Yeah. I mean, it makes them feel like the story is unfolding. Like they have agency over it and not like I'm being railroaded into going here and doing this thing.
Exactly. I had an encounter planned where they were going to fight a keg mimic.
A keg mimic?
A keg mimic at BB's. Instead, the cleric ended up with a keg familiar.
Oh.
Like the dice were absolutely working for him. I was dying. This is so not what I intended to have happen with. This is supposed to be like this big like battle fight and everything like that. But no, he tamed the keg mimic and they got a leash for it and everything. And they named it Ginny, and stamped on the side was 8675309 as her serial number. I mean, it turned into this fantastic part of the story. And then Ginny the keg mimic was following Timothy the cleric around, and he was trying to train it to be nice. It was just it's stuff like that.
That's stuff that you cannot plan in advance.
No, but it made it so unique and so special. I'm glad that wasn't planned because it was so much better. Like it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I'll roll my dice, you roll your dice, let's see what happens. He got a nat 20 on an animal handling and I rolled a 2. So I was like, this is supposed to happen. So yeah, you have a pet mimic.
I fully intend this summer, when we're all vaccinated, I too will have a keg familiar.
I highly advocate it. It is a lot of fun. I mean, I played it out so it like walked like a bulldog because I was thinking like, how would something
It's a wonderful visual.
Yeah, so it's like, this hulking thing. It was just kind of moving around, shoulders hunched over. It was great. It was so much fun.
Jenny the keg familiar.
Now, if only you could also deliver beer too. Like that would be,
that was the debate. I'm like, I was like, we're not going to get into the bodily fluid debate. Let's just kind of.
Smart thinking. I'm sure at the table it was discussed.
Behind the scenes, like, let's just treat it like this is an animal that looks like a keg. It's not actually a keg, and we just know.
Let's go from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So are you, we've been talking a lot about dungeon mastering. Like, are you that primarily, or do you play? How does that work?
I am more often player than I am DM because of time. So if I had more time, I would love to DM. I absolutely adore doing it. It's such a time sink for me that I want to make sure I can carve out the time to do it and to do it to, the quality I'd like to present to my players, as opposed to let me just quick slap shot and this kind of worked. So there might be something floating around down the line in the future. I can't quite talk about it in full yet, but there's another chance that I'll be back in the DM seat,
All
which I would
right.
absolutely love. But right now it's mostly regular player on the Dawnbringers, which is over on Mini Turin Domain every Thursday, where I play Cantriel, my Bard Ranger, and she is like my absolute love. She's truly one of my favorite PCs. And then I'll do guest appearance player spots on various other games and channels and things like that. So you'll see me more as a player right now than as a DM.
And there's one of those that just aired last week, right?
Yeah, there was.
Tell us about that.
Very exciting.
That one, honestly, this one is one I have been absolutely jonesing for because my college degree is in English, but it was Victorian Gothic. So when I got approached to see if I wanted to be a guest player for this, and I was told, it's Van Richten's. I'm like, oh, hi. And then told horror Gothic, I'm like, yes, what are we doing here? So B Dave and I chatted about it, and he thought it would be fun to have me come in right out of the bat as this particular character to play out, because it's one of those things where she is going to be sort of this impetus for the other characters. So it's going into it, it's like, oh, okay, so she's going to be fun to play. And, just kind of get a taste of her because it's one of those things where you're going into it knowing that you're going to die in the first episode. But still, there's reasons for it. And I'm eager to see how everyone takes to it and plays it out. But, basically, it's one of those things where Nika is, this dichotomy of she wants to be there for everyone, but she also has a very strong personality, which was the appeal for why I was like, oh yeah, I'd be very interested in playing out this PC, because she's similar to how I play a lot of my other PCs. And I think that's why I was approached for it, because Cantriel is a very much take charge. She will do what she wants. She's like, yes, fine, let's just go. We're done. And same thing with BB. She's very much, this is how things are done. This is how things are going to go. Try and challenge me on it. So it's going to be, I'm very excited to see how what happens with her from this past episode feeds into what they're going to be doing for the rest of this series, because just from what I'm getting as, guest player, it's honestly phenomenal. What everyone is putting into their characters, what B Dave is putting into the story that he's got plotted out. It's really cool. And the fact that it's taking place with Ravenloft and feathering out into all the other domains. And it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm thrilled. Like the little Victorian Gothic freak who loved her books, like, Frankenstein and Jekyll and Hyde and Dracula and Lady in White, like all of those. I'm just like, oh my God, this is just amazing. So yeah, that's something that I was very excited to be a part of and be able to dip my toes into as well.
And now you can say you used your degree.
I can.
The same thing.
Actually, no, I have been using my degree this whole time. That's the funny thing. It's like, okay, so I'm just telling stories. Yay!
Yep. That sounds amazing. Yeah, B Dave is
majors
is
of the
very
world
special.
unite.
Yeah. So it's going to be so cool, and I can't wait to see it all pan out now.
I know your
that it's
character
started.
had such an important part in that story. It's really it's cool to see what happens.
Yeah, it's neat when it's like, oh, so this okay. It's a pivotal. Okay, let's do it. Fun, yay! So yeah, I'm excited for everything that's going to come with it, and so.
So you
Are you a
talked
horror fan in general, other than Victorian horror? Like, are you excited to branch into the different domains potentially in there?
Oh, I would love to. The funny thing is, I've always been one of those people who loves like psychological horrors, like play with the mind. Like, please, absolutely. I want like the creepy shadow skittering across the wall. I want that sound that did everyone hear it? Did no one hear it?
Yeah.
I want the whispering voices where people are hearing different things. That's honestly why I like the Margrave so much. But it was one of those things where it's just, for me, I love everything except for actual zombie films. Like, I don't like excessive gore and zombies. but yet I love the horror background of it all. So yeah, it's reading through it and seeing everything that's going in there. The little dark side of me that rarely gets to come out and play is loving what's in that. Absolutely.
Nice. Yeah. Casting some dissonant whispers on you there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Often the anticipation of something scary happening is scarier than the thing itself. So, psychological.
Get the build up going, and then it's like, boom, like not the jump scare thing, but it's just like, no, not at all what you thought. The turning of the tables it's such a fun little element that you can put into play, and watching the reactions too, when like the look of horror comes across their face, like, wait a minute, what? I love that part. I'm always like, yes.
Have you run a lot of horror or added elements of horror in your campaigns?
Less horror and more anticipation and fear. I used Baba Yaga as a pivotal piece in one of the other games that I ran. And the whole time, the party is convinced she is out to get us. She is going to harm us. She is going to do no good. We have to fight her. She is the baddie. We're going to have this major battle. And the very last episode, they go to her hut and she's like, take a seat, sit down, and we're just going to talk things over, because it turns out she had actually hired them. They had been working for her the entire time. So Just watching that all pan out, I was like, hi. But it's little twists like that I like to incorporate into the games and the campaigns that I'll get going for people.
That's like opposite horror. It's like, oh, you're going to have the anticipation. Oh, by the way, you've been, hood-swinged the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah. They almost get their own paranoia built up, and I'll feed into that paranoia. I'm like, okay. So that's where she's absolutely horrible. She's wretched. She's menacing, and she's, giving you these don't you dare cross me things. And then by the time you're like, literally weapons up to fight, she's like, oh, no. We need to sit down because I'm almost done getting this pulled together so you can go and do what you need to do. So yeah, it's just watching the reactions. It's great.
Oh, that's awesome.
So you mentioned a little while ago that you were working with Cobalt Press, and they've got an amazing Vault of Magic coming soon. And you designed something for that, right?
Yes, they actually got a collection of magical items from me, again, based off of the Last Heir. Since it was a 2-season campaign for them, and I had created for my players at various points different magical items, just because I like to give gifts as a DM.
Aw, nice.
It's like, oh, I'm having fun with you. Here's a present. So when they asked if I'd be willing to chip something in, I said, well, I have all the stuff left over from the from the Last Heir. Any interest in those? And that's when they were kind of like, oh, well, could we do this as a collection then? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So sat down, sort of recalibrated a couple things, and gave them 7 items to include into the Vault of Magic. And I can't wait to see what comes of it, because it was fun little things that were inspired by each of the characters. And now to know that they're going to have some, longevity and the ability to get used is really kind of awesome.
The legacy lives on.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Definitely. Yeah.
Can you preview any of them for us, or is that too spoilery?
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things I'll do it off the top of my head. So one of the things that I loved was the Valkyrie's Bite. And it was a sword that it's actually a scimitar that I created for Stonefly Kai's character, Zira. And Zira had a sword that she carried that was her brother's sword, and she would use it in battle and everything like that. And the way Kai would describe her action sequences, I like to call them, it was very fluid and almost ballet-like. I'd swing my sword around and I spin and I dodge down. So it had like this almost ballet-like quality to her descriptions. And because of that, I thought, it'd be really cool if Zira, her character, got a sword or something to sort of commemorate how far she's come from the beginning to where they ended up. And so I created this scimitar that, it's a black steel blade. It has an amethyst in the pommel, and it's one of those things that gives extra damage. But it also has this very faint purple glow to it. So it's like a 10-foot faint purple glow that's just, whenever you're using it, it's there. So that I was picturing that when she's moving this sword around her character, you actually see the arc and the motion of the sword happening because of the light trail. Cool. So that was something I created for her character specifically because of how she would play her character. So that's one of the things that'll be in there.
Purple light is always amazing too, because you feel it feels very fantasy-like.
And it's just it was just a cool effect that I thought would be something fun to add and feed into the weapon to make it her own. So that was one of them. And everyone got something specifically to their own little, not their little, but their own characters. There's the clockwork hair one, which is, it's sort of like a stops time type of thing. But I gave it to a player who was actually having to step out for a period of time. We didn't know how long it was going to take. So in game, his character got this little clockwork hair where it would stop time for an hour. And they would be able to do what they need to catch up and everything like that. Obviously, I fine-tuned it more when it came time to put it into the Vault of Magic. But for me as a DM, it's like, well, I want to give them a chance to be able to jump back in. And, kind of someone had said it's like the Zach Morris Saved by the Bell, pause time and run around and do your thing. So kind of give them that chance to do what they need to do before they join the rest of the party again. So that got tweaked a little bit. So it's like you can still do it. It's only I think I gave it 30 feet. And if you interact with anyone else, like if you touch someone else, it'll break the spell and you won't be able to have that pause time anymore. But it's just, an opportunity to do something without being able to go around take or kill or anything like that too. Because, that's a lot of time to do something with. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
I love
just things like that.
Giving little gifts to players in, nicely designed magic items. It's such a beautiful way to think about it. I think there's this adversarial relationship that some players of D&D have with DMs and players. And I just loved hearing so much more stories where it's this type of, mutual appreciation and love for the stories that you're creating together.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is because my DMing is influenced by the fact that I used to be a teacher. So for me, I see it as far more collaborative, that everyone's at that table for a reason. And if I can guide and help and enhance what they want to create, then I'm doing my job as the DM. It's far less mwahaha. Not saying that I won't kill off a PC if it's warranted, if that's what the dice are showing. But it's also, I love seeing what everyone wants to chip in and add to it. So it's definitely influenced. Like when I realized that DMing is basically creating lesson plans like I would as a teacher, I was like, oh, this is not as bad as I thought it was, because I was a very reluctant DM. I fought it for the longest time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was very stubborn. Like, I'm not going to DM. I will just be a player. Do not ask me to DM.
Why did you not want to DM?
Because I thought it was going to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a lot of work. And then when I realized, as I was prepping, when I finally said yes to it, I'm like, oh, so this is what it is. But yeah, so it's definitely the teacher factor has fed into how I stylize my own techniques as a DM. I'd rather people have I'd love to give everyone a little feature moment so they can shine as a player. And, again, to me, it's community storytelling. Yeah. So it's like we're building this story together. Yes, I will have the framework. I can give you basically the syllabus of the campaign, but how you add into the rest of it, that's entirely up to each player, and how we work together is really how I approach it all.
This is the curriculum.
Exactly.
I'm loving these teacher analogies.
I was just gonna say, I'm not a teacher. I've never been a teacher, but I love the analogy of prepping is like a lesson plan. Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting way.
Yeah, because you need that framework in order to, because every kid is going to come up with a different answer or a different question, and you have to kind of improvise off of it. But you still have we need to get through these things for the day, and the same thing I need to get through these events for the adventure. Mm-hmm. It's very similar.
It's basically, my campaign notes are a unit. And then each episode is a lesson plan. So they're very similar parallels. And quite frankly, because I taught high school level, like you have to think on your feet when you teach that age group. Like there's just no way around it because there's so many different personalities. So that even of itself got me ready for the different types of players who are out there.
Yeah.
So it's been a very interesting discovery. Be like, oh, so, jumping back to what my degree is, it's like, yeah, I've definitely tapped into my post-grad work to get the education certifications. Like, oh, wow. Everything I've done in the past has kind of pulled itself together. And now it's in this lovely spot where I get to, create stories and share interests and get people excited about, dragons. It's unreal. It's fantastic.
I love the idea also of a classroom kind of being like a D&D party. And, knowing that like you said, there's so many different personality types, just like there's so many different player types, but kids learn in different ways. You have visual learners, you have kids that, want to be talked to, but just like really being able to highlight their strengths, and so that they're not focused on the weaknesses, but just, you're good at this, you're good at learning this way, and really being able to, I don't know, just highlighting them in much the way that a dungeon master would with their party. It's all very cool the way. Yeah, I've never thought about teachers and dungeon masters in quite this way before, but there are so many similarities.
It's a cool parallel, and we were even joking around one time during one of my mini painting streams, like a Monster High type of campaign, where it's like literally instead of you meet in a tavern, you meet in your homeroom.
Yeah.
And starting a campaign from that. And it was, have it be not necessarily like, your classic typical, fighter range or whatever. It be, no, you start off as like, you have your different cliques of monsters. So it's like, I think it was the goblins were the tech kids. The ogres were the jocks. Cheerleaders were your, what were the cheerleaders? I forgot what we were cracking up by the time we were done with that stream, just from like everyone getting into feeding in the different monsters that would fill the roles of your typical, not stereotypes, but the type of cliques you would find in high school.
Tropes.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, who knows? Maybe that might happen someday. Someday I'll pull that one together too.
Right. And then you'll have your Breakfast Club moment too, where they're all, they're stuck in a detention from different groups. And what do they do? Right. I love that. Yeah.
That
yes. I want to see a whole, like a John Hughes inspired D&D campaign book. That would be awesome.
Be fun. That really would be cool.
I'm down.
Yep.
I even like, the miniatures, to follow this analogy even more. The miniatures are like the transparencies that you would have, or whatever visual aids you would have as a teacher.
The transparency.
I know. Maybe that was dating myself a little bit too far.
Well, no, I mean, not necessarily, because I was
is this
still
a D&D
using
thing?
those.
Oh my God. So like you'd have
anymore.
to like, remember the machine that they had to like crank the transparency paper?
You had to
instead,
like weave it.
Eventually it just was sheets of paper that they would put on the projector, but back in the older days. Yeah, they had
way,
to like
way
crank
back.
it by hand.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I want to be the person who can do the knob and turn it to the
Can I
next
switch
one.
the papers?
Oh, Gen X. So fun.
Oh, that's amazing. What a memory.
When
That's
phones
so
had
cool.
cords.
When phones had cords or were,
and
attached to the wall.
dials.
Right? Oh God. Right? And if you're good, you could like chase the dial ahead of time to like catch the number where you need it to be.
Oh yeah.
To get your friend's number.
Yes,
in.
but not too. You could stop it from going all the way around if you weren't. If you weren't coordinated enough.
Yeah. God.
And then you have to start all over. Remember busy signals? Oh, it was so frustrating. I'm like, I just want to talk to my friend.
You just want to call them up. Dial in. God.
I guess I'll just have them ride my bike to their house. It's the only way I can get in touch with them.
And I have to like
exactly.
walk 5 minutes out.
We have to like talk to them in person.
What is that?
And now people are like, I can't text you. It's too much work.
Right? Like, no, it's just
Now everybody wants this face-to-face connection. We had that. We invented that.
We invented that. And we invented Tiamat. And Tiamat's coming.
Oh my God.
It's always a
Good
progression.
segue, Greg.
Oh man. She really is.
So you said September. But
September,
I mean,
yep.
I feel like WizKids has been putting out so many amazing, and I keep using that word amazing because it is like, oh wow, I didn't even know I wanted this, and here it comes again.
That's
So
just it.
what's been some of the the talk, obviously you can't tell us what's not announced yet, but like what are some of the talks about like what's coming that's getting you excited, and how have you enjoyed the response?
Definitely the fact that there's going to be some more Cold Dragons coming down the pipeline. I mean, the adult blue's coming out very soon. The green is not too far behind, so green's coming out in the summer. That's gonna be another fun one to take a look at. And then, finishing up chromatics, which means going into metallics. So I'm really looking forward to metallics, like seeing those come to fruition as well. And then there's also, just why am I blanking? Miniatures in of themselves, like various new ones that you could use for PCs or even NPCs type of stuff. But the unpainted miniatures, there's some really cool sculpts that I'm excited to see and get my hands on to start painting, as well as new sets. It's just because there's so many people involved who enjoy playing the game. A lot of thought is going into these miniatures now and how to make it a better experience as you play the game. Like even the fact of the whole like clear base factor now, because now you can put these things onto your terrain and the terrain still shows through. So it's not like, oh, wait, we're in snow and this has grass.
It's got a purple, a disc on it that just happens to be the size of the mini. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, that in of itself is a cool thing to see playing out.
So that's relatively new, right? That was the last batch really that you've been doing.
Yeah,
these,
like over the past year, the clear base thing.
What was, did you hear from players, or is that something that you were like, hey, as a person who uses this, I really think it's great, and then come forward?
I certainly cannot take credit for that one.
I want to take credit. I'm like, pat yourself on the back.
Yes, it was my idea, dang it.
No, that was apps. I do that, by the way. I'll lapse into voices. No, that was something where as I started, those were starting to come out too. So it was when I got there, I was like, ooh, I was more like the giddy fan who was like, yes, this is cool. But yeah, it's going to be fun to see more and more of that becoming the trend so that it's, more integral and worked into each other.
So great. Yeah. Doing great work. So pass on, thumbs up from us, just that it's really great to see the artwork that's in, D&D books be translated into this 3D environment. It's as someone who is, I'm not a visual artist at all, but I'm a lover of such things, and just I know that that's not easy to do seamlessly, especially when like, oh, this is 2D art that doesn't show, the butt of the dragon. What does the butt look like?
But it's true. I mean, that's just it. We so often get sometimes even just like the shoulders and up half the time. So to see just with the Tiamat render of the spinning around. When I saw that, it was like, oh my gosh, a 360 of her? That was phenomenal to see. And the fact that someone sat there and actually gave this thought and put the concept from what was on the page into what this is going to turn into. It's absolutely incredible to see, 2D to 3D to in front of you. It really is. I mean, it's such a cool process.
I think it was Nick Bartaletti that did that. The 3D render around for Tyranny of Dragons, if I'm remembering correctly. So I'm so glad that's
he's
being
a
used.
genius.
Yeah, it's fun to see this all come to fruition and everyone getting excited about it and wanting more of it for sure. But yeah, it's there's so much to D&D between what's being worked on for future projects to what's already out there. It's something that the developers are very cognizant of and working on, and there's cool stuff. I really seriously, there are some items that I cannot wait to finally be able to talk about because people are going to go gonzo for them. It's just, if you love D&D, you're going to love this stuff. It's like, it really is great.
And I love that you're also, you and WizKids are pushing this thing that D&D is performance, it is game design, it is this collaborative storytelling, but it also has elements of art and, sculpture and all of these other things that a D&D player can interact with as much as they want or as little as they want. And I love that it inspires people to get outside of their, norm of, hey, I go to work and then I play D&D online, and then, but there's so many other parts that you can bring into it, the singing, the performance, all that stuff. And I love that WizKids is just, giving the inspiration with these paint kits and things like that to branch out.
Absolutely. I mean, geez, you want to come and paint with me? Seriously. I can give you each a paint kit and you can come and paint with me because we're going to, try and do some painting streams with these things if you want. Just saying.
I got a dire troll right here ready to be painted. I'm in.
If you want.
I mean,
I'm in.
The people I know who paint minis say it's very relaxing.
It actually is. There is this beautiful thing called the Zen that you'll hit when you really get into, oh God, yes. It's like you hit this moment. And I've had this happen so many times when I've done painting classes and stuff at conventions and everything like that. There's this point where I know that the people are all painting, and you can actually hear it gets very quiet, and you can hear like people rinsing their brushes. You can hear people brushing the paint off on their paper towels. You can actually hear people breathing, and it just has this beautifully quiet tone to it. And it'll happen. And when it happens, it's just like I will stop, and I just kind of enjoy the sound of it, because you're taking in all these little quiet sounds, but you're realizing that everyone's doing something collectively and has hit that point of relaxed and focused and just doing their thing. And it is absolutely a wonderful thing to experience when you're the one who's kind of getting people to that point. I actually miss that point from conventions. I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to get back to doing paint classes again, to get that level of just connecting with everyone and people learning and doing. And it's, I don't know, I geek out over it, but there's definitely a zen that happens with mini painting, even when you're just starting to get into it, because you focus on something and it becomes, this repetitive motion, but it's also because you see progress happening and you're learning at the same time. It's a really neat combination of many things kind of getting meshed together.
Yeah.
So it's
and
fun.
that concentration can, hours can pass, and then you're like, I was just in this flow moment of creativity. And I know people experience that in different fields, and it's so great to be like, I can just do that with, bringing this miniature to color life in front of me.
That's just it.
That's super cool.
They go from the little, grayish white tone mini to this thing with color and life to it by the time they're done. So it's really a cool thing to be able to do.
I love it.
I'd be very
More people should do it.
And
I think so too.
Shelly's going to do it now, I think. She just said, right?
Okay.
I'm not artsy.
That's okay.
I don't have artistic bones in my body.
I will absolutely walk you through the whole process, because that's sort of my thing. I will take beginner painters and get them going.
Okay.
I
would do it. Cool. I would love to try it. I would.
Yes, let's. We really should. It'd be a lot of fun. Plus, it's like chit chat and going back and forth, and how are you doing, and showing off what you got going.
And if you could teach me, if I could emerge with something that looked decent, then you're a genius. You're a genius.
Okay, cool.
Because when I was in 5th grade, we had like a big brother, big sister thing with the kindergarten class, and we would go down to the kindergarten class, and there was like an activity planned. And I remember my little brother, my kindergartner, he wanted to learn how to draw a dog. And I was like, oh, okay. And I tried. And he made fun of it. And he goes, that's not a dog. And then hit the and I'm telling you, that moment imprinted on me in such a big way.
Oh, no.
Well, I guess just not an artist. I probably threw away my colored pencils and my crayons after that. So
yeah, no.
I hope that kid's happy.
Get you back into it. Look what you did.
Let's go find him. And force him to paint minis with us.
I can still see his
so we can
face.
catch up. It's a very similar story to then your dungeon mastering story, Shelly. So I feel like you've got these imprinting moments.
I just can't take criticism.
We're working through all of this.
I cannot take it. I think that's what we're learning here.
Yep.
Cannot fail, cannot take criticism. So I just don't try new things. Let's just keep doing what we're doing.
Oh, you should try new things. That's what it's all about.
You should try it.
I would. I admire people who do it. It looks, I just like to see their little paints all lined up on their shelves, and it just looks, I would love to do something cool and custom.
So what if we did the red slot together? Because, it's red. It's mostly red. So it'd actually be pretty easy. Let's figure this out. I think it'd be fun.
Okay.
We'll make it happen. I love it.
I like it too.
Talk.
And I love that this is and in some ways your job now, Vee, is just getting people inspiring them and bringing them in, and here's some products that you can potentially use, and you're doing a great job with it.
It's nice when your passion gets to sort of feed into what you're doing as a profession. It really is. So I'm all for it. But let's sit down and paint. We'll have some fun with it.
Paint night.
See how you do. Woo! Paint night. Yep. Let's do it.
Okay.
So you mentioned your paint along on Twitches and stuff. So why don't you give us the whole spiel of where people can find stuff about you, as well as the performances and shows that you're doing.
Okay. How much longer do we have? No, I'm kidding.
And you have
I'll put it in the show
seconds.
notes too, so people can reference it in the show notes.
It's one of those things. Last time I did this, I was like, I have a lot happening. Sorry. But in terms of the terrain building and the miniature painting, I have a video on demand library for my YouTube channel, The Crafting Muse. So that's where you can go on there and check out videos that I've done in the past, and they're all tutorial based. You can do step-by-step follow along. And that's there for whenever you want to have it happen. Every so often, I will jump on and just do random live streams these days. I've been reading Grimm's fairy tales and then talking about how we can turn it into campaign fodder. So that's been fun. So I actually need to pick back up and do another one of those soon, because I locked onto this concept that kind of took on its own thing. And now I have a Timewell Chronicles to work on with people for a world building stream. Different story. So that's just totally random. That I'm going to tell you to follow me over on Twitter at the Crafting Muse, so you can get updates as to when I do my impromptu live streams and everything like that. In terms of regular appearances, there is definitely the Dawnbringers, which happens every Thursday starting at 8:30 Eastern time over on Mini Terrain Domain on Twitch. And that is where I play my Eladrin Bard Ranger Cantriel Cavatina. She is a smart mouth. She is sarcastic. She will not take any you-know-what from anyone. And she's just, I adore playing her. She's fun. She's my little bit of salty snark. And then every Wednesday for WizKids, that's where I do Mini Mayhem, which is, it's a blend of unboxings, updates about what's happening in the world of tabletop miniatures, as well as I'll do terrain builds using Warlock tiles. And I also will do miniature painting of various unpainted miniatures, so I'll be doing one coming up soon and try and like rotate where it's like, Nolzers, so on and so forth, every so often. So that is every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. You can catch me there. And it's like I said, definitely find me over on Twitter, because then you can find out when I'm doing the different guest player appearances too, because I'm being approached for other areas as well, but time and place can vary and things like that. I will be doing Jasper's Game Day, have a couple games for that week. Cool. Coming up in Maine, not in Maine, in May. In Maine.
There's
Can you tell I'm already planning a vacation? But yeah, no, I have a couple games for that week too. So it's going to be a lot of fun stuff and bopping around and doing different things per usual, quite frankly.
Nice.
Keeps it interesting.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely
tendrils into all types of different fun stuff. So I love that. Yeah. And for sure, check out your guest turn on Black Dice Society, which is on the D&D YouTube channel.
Yep, D&D YouTube channel. So you can catch up and then you can watch it again and keep going with it, because it sounds like they're going to do some really cool things with it.
Love it. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah,
no doubt.
Well, thanks so much for being on and inspiring us.
Yeah,
and,
you're an inspiration for sure.
Oh, thanks.
We'll get together and paint some stuff soon. I'm excited.
Yes, I say we'll get the little red fellow going.
Okay, I'm excited.
All right,
now.
cool. Me too.